Okay, guys, welcome back to Truth Be Told. I am so excited for today's episode. We have a really, really special guest on today, and this is only my second interview style podcast that I've done. We did one for the Children's March of Humanity with Brittney, and today I have the privilege and honor of interviewing a woman who is really committed to driving and producing some massive social changes. And she saw some things happening in the world that she wasn't okay with. And instead of just sitting back and watching it happen, she decided to take action. And so today I have the privilege of interviewing Janine DeRose. She is running for 2018 Senate seat in District 6 in Sacramento. And I could not be more excited about reading you guys her bio and just telling you a little bit about her before I bring her on. So Janine is very largely politically minded, and some of her most recent efforts have been geared towards nonprofit work focused on cultural changes that will bring light to the connection between how we behave in our own personal lives and also what behaviors we accept from our political leaders. She's a colleague with the Foundation for Harmony and Prosperity, which is a nonprofit organization assembled to persuade people to act in concert with social principles that advance human happiness, harmony, and prosperity. Everybody say, ooh, it's so exciting. And she is the executive director for the Libertarian Party of Sacramento, which is a well-rounded county-wide political party organization that's rooted in the libertarian philosophy. And we're going to talk a little bit about that today. And she is also really passionate about working through communities in order to change the culture of local governments and people and beyond. So welcome to the podcast, Janine. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me on here. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. So I just am so interested in who you are as a person. I know also, I didn't say this in your bio, but I want to talk about it for a second because it's near and dear to my heart, but you are also a mother, right?
Yes.
And how many children do you have?
I have 3 little ones. My oldest is 9. And then I have a 6-year-old and 10 months. So I'm in the thick of it.
You are in the thick of it. And I'm right there with you, sister. We just were talking before we started recording. Our kids are almost exactly all the same age, which is really wild. So I totally know what that entails. I mean, being a mom is a full-time job anyways. And then you felt inspired to add more to your plate, which is very, very brave and very courageous of you. So tell me a little bit about what first made you want to step into this position, and also how did that affect your role as a mom in your household, and how has that kind of just changed things for you guys?
Well, I feel like I didn't have a choice. And I know sometimes when you're called to do something, it does feel like that, like you weren't really left with a choice. But in order to protect my family, not just allow them to thrive, but actually protect them from the legislation that's coming down in California, I had no choice but to step up. And I didn't see the shoes being filled at the time. I know that we've had a couple candidates pop up since then, but at the time there weren't any good options showing up. And for me, this was like critical. This is the time that we can actually really remove somebody who's an obstacle to our way of life. I mean, we're in California. It's an amazing state. It's a beautiful place to live, but we have these challenges with our government, and they're not getting any better. They're just getting worse every single year. So I'm not kicking and screaming, but I'm a little bit overwhelmed with the monumental task ahead of me. So we're just taking baby steps, and my kids are very involved. They're making little campaign signs. They're like, vote for my mom because I love her. Like,
oh my God.
That kind of encouragement you don't get from the public. So it's also a good thing, to stay heart-centered and have their support. And the fact that they understand why I'm doing this is really important. I'm very open with them. They understand. So
I love that. Well, children are sponges, right? They're so open and aware. And I love that you're including them in that, because I include my children in all my activism work too. And sometimes it's not easy for me to explain certain issues that are going on with them, but always think that it's important that we're honest and we let them know what's happening in our world so that they can grow up to be conscious individuals in society, and they can grow up and give back to the world in amazing ways. And they're really going to model that behavior off of what they're seeing in the home. So congratulations for just stepping up for not only your children, but for my children and for all the children in California. But it's not just a California issue, right? Because we're seeing political turmoil and we're seeing corrupt politicians all throughout our government here in the United States and across the world. So you're really standing up to all those injustices and saying, you know what, I'm going to be the change that I want to see in the world. And that's an amazing thing. So can you tell me a little bit about, getting into politics? I was a poli-sci major in college. So I got my degree from UCLA in poli-sci. So I've always been a little bit of a political nerd. Mm-hmm. And I've actually thought about, running for offices and different things in my area. But I really, to be honest with you, I never had the courage to step into that place. And so that's why I'm so inspired by what you're doing. But how did you begin your work in politics? Like, I know you saw things happening and you wanted to change it, but can you just walk us through that a little more of what really made you aware? Because a lot of people just aren't even aware.
Well, I'm going to go through that, but I also want to tell you, I see specialty areas. So like when I was working and I worked with a lot of auditors, I saw a specialty area and I kept asking myself, what is the magic wand? How did they go from being a normal person to an auditor? Or how did they pick up this knowledge base to be able to say like, okay, now I'm qualified? And I see it the same way with politics. We expect there to be some sort of magic, but it's really just being the willingness to stand up and to find the truth for yourself and share that truth. So politics is really just sharing information, and we're seeing systemic depravity in our political realms across, as far as I can see, which, I don't travel internationally, but at least across the United States. And I was actually listening to your podcast this morning, and the whole leadership talk, that's exactly right on. That's what everybody in our movement needs to hear. They need to understand that it's okay to stand up and say that corruption is not all right. It's not something we have to accept. It's not something we have to live with. So every time someone becomes empowered and voices their dissent, that's a movement, right? There's a exponential growth at some point. So as long as you're not staying quiet, so this isn't.
Many people know I don't stay quiet, but yeah.
As long as people feel crippled into silence, it continues.
Yes.
When people find their voice and they stand up, that's when it can actually create a change. And very few people created the system we have, and very few people can undo the problems with it. So don't ever be discouraged. But my actual journey into politics came from the actual health perspective, which is so weird because I get a lot of arrows from the inside of the Libertarian Party, a bunch of guys who don't care about their health, and I'm all health conscious. But I was training to be a health coach, and I wanted to help people, and I couldn't figure out why the government cared what words I used or how I helped people. If people really gained help from me, it was almost like competition for their monopoly on healthcare and keeping people sick. And that was really disturbing for me. I was like, why? I never had a concern. I knew that politics was a dirty business, but I never had concern that there was like an actual attempt for people to be shut down and not be healthy human beings. And when I saw that, I was like, okay, I need to research more. And I started looking into it, and boy, I went down some rabbit holes, and I was like, this is not okay. I need to get involved in this way because I can help 1 or 2 people or 100 people or 500 people. But what about the millions and millions of people who are being kept in a state of discomfort simply for money and power? It's disgusting.
I'm so right there with you. And that's really exactly my journey. It's really weird. We have a lot of parallels, but I was, I just didn't understand, like, okay, well, there's all these natural cancer treatments. Why is nobody talking about it? There's all of these, holistic things that you can do to release weight naturally, balance your body, all these things. But why is nobody talking about it? And so I learned really early on in my early 20s while I was studying politics and while I was really believing in this structure of freedom and the American dream that we all hold so close to our heart. It's a part of who we are. It's our identity, right? And we're so attached to that we have all these freedoms. But when you start to dig deep, you really start to see, oh my goodness, we really don't. And things are not what they seem. And there's a whole agenda behind it. And I love what you said, that there's only a few people. People are so afraid of the big corporations and the power of the government, but we are more mighty than they are. And that's really what has to happen, is the social consciousness has to shift, where individuals say, I'm not okay with this. I am part of the collective consciousness, and I know that the collective consciousness needs my voice, and I am also part of the government. The government shouldn't be so far attached from the individual. The government should be part of our lives in a balanced, appropriate way, right? Because the government's built there to protect us, but it's not anymore. It's built to protect special interests. So I went on the same journey as you, the health industry, and going down that rabbit hole, the pharmaceutical industry, and just really, and the same thing, I couldn't stay quiet. I had to speak out, and I had to educate others. And especially for moms, I truly believe I talk about on Facebook a lot, the revolution. I do believe we are in a social revolution right now. And I do believe we're fighting very evil things. And as mothers of our children and mothers of the world, I think it's our responsibility to stand up. So that's really cool. We both have that same journey. So could you talk, I know that you are a libertarian, and could you talk a little bit about, I feel like people get really confused by the parties, like they're just programmed. This was true for me anyways, like you're just programmed what you grow up in your house. You're either like Republican or Democrat, or you don't even really ever ask questions, right? It's just like a label that we use. But I think it's really important that people understand some of the different parties that exist besides the two primary parties, and then what those parties stand for in terms of their morals and their beliefs and the structure of that political party. So could you speak a little bit to the Libertarian Party and just kind of explain to the listeners what that is and what you guys stand for?
Absolutely. So this is part of what I do with my day job, is helping with the messaging, because it's very confusing to people. And there's a lot of messaging out there around the Libertarian Party. So the best way I've ever heard it described, and this is kind of, there's two kinds of libertarians. There's libertarians who were born libertarian and they've never been any other way. And then there's libertarians who become libertarians through adversity. So I'm the first kind. So I didn't have all the right words when I started out. I knew that there was something wrong, but I didn't understand how to describe it. My innate nature is libertarian. And the first time I aligned myself with a political party, it was libertarian. So it's kind of like in me. So the way that I heard it described best, that resonated the most with me and a lot of people, I think, is we all hold social values or personal values. So we have liberal simply means that you're very open to change. You're willing to look at new perspectives. You can endure rapid growth, rapid change, and still feel comfortable. Conservatives is very respectful towards authority and tradition, and these are not bad values. These are this is just simply who human beings are. We have values, we have a structure of beliefs. Okay. So what it used to be was the Democrat Party was more of like these forward thinking, visionary kind of, we want change, we want rapid growth kind of things. Then your Conservative Party was like kind of looking more at historical references for how they operated. But what it's turned into is obviously something very different. So this paradigm of right and left, it exists in human beings regardless. You can't change somebody's personal values. It's only when you say that my personal values are more important than yours, and I'm going to force you to live by my personal values. That's where we get into trouble. And that's what the Democrat and Republican parties are doing right now. So the Libertarian Party is a collection of people who have the full spectrum of personal beliefs, but they are not willing to use force against other people to make them live the way that they want to live.
That's powerful, right? We need that right now. There's a lot of force. There's a lot of resistance. And we know what we resist persists, right? And that's why we're seeing the energy of our nation is in such turmoil because people are rebelling against this pressure, but then we're not finding peace because everybody's just like, you know? So that's a great explanation of it. And thank you for just describing it in that way. So can you tell us a little bit about the process of this campaign? I mean, how are you preparing? Obviously, it takes a tremendous amount of thought and energy and just guts to run for a Senate seat. I mean, this is a huge deal. So tell me a little bit about this campaign journey for you and what you've had to put into it and what your vision and your intention is with it as you move forward.
So I started about 3 or 4 years ago in politics, 2013. So about April. So I guess almost 4 years now. That's kind of scary. Long time in politics. And my way is to research and to observe and to figure out how things operate and then design better systems. So I'm watching all these different campaigns, watching all these different political events, how people conduct themselves, how they network, where the power structures actually exist, because it's not usually what you see. The people you usually see aren't really controlling the power structure. It's people behind the scenes. So just observing how all of these systems work, that's like the research phase of it. And then now we did like a little test campaign to see how people would respond to me as a candidate. So how I look, how I conduct myself, the things that I say, and how I respond to people when they have questions. So we kind of observed that whole piece of time. Then we look at the whole FPPC thing, which is just a nightmare in California. So all of the preparation that's gone into this has been like research, all the campaign training I've taken, everything. But it's research for me to help other candidates. And then this opportunity came along. So it's also to help myself. So finding the components that make a good campaign has basically been my life's dedication for the last 4 years. So I can break down the entire strategy of how you can actually get a candidate through in California. Now, the percentage of unseating an incumbent in California because of our level of representation is, last I checked, it was like 0.69%, not 69%, 0.69%. It's not even a full percentage point. And it's so rare that it's like national news when an incumbent is unseated. So the only way, literally the only way that I see this working is taking Pan's own words and showing the voters in his district what he's trying to do. So taking his SB 18, that's the best campaign material I could ever ask for.
Right.
You take that to a parent and they read it and they're like, this is not okay.
Right.
I mean, they have a visceral reaction to that kind of verbiage being used to describe their children. The children are not property of the state. Pan has no oversight or any say in how your children are raised. There are instances where children do need help, and I am the largest child advocate. I will advocate for children every day of the week, all day long. But that's not what he's doing. What he's doing is so insensitive, unfeeling, uncaring, and you can see it the way that he responds to people when he's speaking in public. He doesn't care about people.
100%. And for those listening that maybe don't know, we just brought up Senator Pan is the current senator in District 6, right? I said that earlier. Is that correct? Okay, District 6, because it's not my district. I'm in Los Angeles. So I'm in District 27. But he's become very famous in California now because he was the senator behind the mandatory vaccination law, SB 277, and now the new law that he's been just very forthcoming with all sorts of legislation during his seat. But what he failed to do was listen to the parents of California. And what we saw during the SB 277 run was just atrocious political behavior. It was blatant disregard for human life, for children's well-being. I mean, the amount of children that have been harmed by his legislation with just SB 277 being kicked out of California. And I share this a lot on my social media pages, but I get hundreds of phone calls from families all across the state that are desperate because they don't feel comfortable subjecting their children to, forced medical procedures, and they can't homeschool, and they're forced to leave the state, and they're going bankrupt. And so he has caused just a massive amount of turmoil. And if you go on his social media page, it's like a different universe, because you go there and you're like, how is this person in a position of power? First of all, most of the people on his Facebook page, you can tell are paid Pharma Troll accounts, which that's a whole rabbit hole we could get into, but they're not actual people. They're paid there to bully and it's called astroturfing. And there's been lots of different investigative journalists. Cheryl Atkinson did a wonderful article about astroturfing and how the big corporations use the internet to bully people. So it's adult bullying going on at a political level, which is just crazy. So you just see that, but you also see just how he speaks to people. I've been in the same room as Senator Pan, and he does not have respect for children or for my children's rights. I mean, he basically told all of us that didn't comply with his bill that our children don't matter. And it was interesting to me, because I don't know if you were at the Capitol for the testimonies for SB 277, but I was were you there with us at that time?
I actually led the team here in Sacramento. So
Amazing. Okay. So yeah.
I've been in this since April 2109.
Okay. So you've been waiting. Yeah, girl, you're in it. So I just remember sitting in there and being in the Capitol, it's an amazing place to be, right? There's a lot of energy in that space, and there's a lot of honor in that space. And it represents freedom and liberties and all of the things that Americans believe in. And especially California, we feel like we're so ahead of everybody else. And we're, the example for the nation. And in a lot of ways we've always led the nation, I think, through health movements and things like that. A lot of things will start in California and then they'll spread across the nation. And what we saw during those testimonies was that the government saying that. I mean, I saw people texting and tweeting when we had, injured families up there with their children in wheelchairs, crying to them about why this law wasn't good for their families. And they were too busy on their cell phones, sitting there like, whatever they were doing. And, eye rolls and laughter. I mean, Pan laughed at some of these like I saw it. And I remember sitting there knowing that politics were corrupt on some level, but when you see it in front of your face and you feel the energy coming from them of that they don't care and that you're just some little minion or ant that they don't have to deal with. It shifted my whole perception of what I believed politics in this like how I believed politics actually ran, because it totally crushed the belief that I had before. So, knowing that and seeing that, and then having this campaign come forward, like you said, it's 0.6% for someone to come in and take that seat. But I think now that the population of California is awake, and a lot of people are waking up to that. And so I'm really excited to see how you're able to inspire that change and actually show people, like you said, show people the character of who he is, right? The character of what we are allowing someone to represent us in a way that doesn't serve our families and our individual liberties. And that's a really important thing for parents to know, that the state should not ever be in control of your child. If there is an issue, like you said, children do get harmed, and I am the first person too that will stand up and fight for a child and their rights. But that's not what's happening here. It's just blatant domination, control from the state down. So, it's an interesting time. So what are some of the things that you want people to be aware of as we come into this new political climate with the new campaign going on? What are some things that individuals listening to this that are like, yes, I want change. I want someone that speaks for the people. I want someone that cares about my values and doesn't want to push their values on me. What are some of the things that we can do as citizens to get more involved, to help people like you that are rising up and being brave and taking the system head on? What would be some of your advice with that?
Well, I don't want to disturb anyone with like the horrific realities of the political climate, but it is really, you
can do that on this podcast. We talk about that stuff. So you go for it, girl. You just speak your truth right now.
It's not easy to be a candidate who's independent from the control of others. Honestly, it makes you a target for everyone pretty much, because you're challenging their system. You're not just challenging like, oh, I don't like your candidate, or I'm running on the Democrat Party and we hate Republicans, or I'm a Republican and I hate Democrat. It's not that. I'm saying I'm actually challenging their whole system. I'm saying what you're doing isn't okay. You're both fighting. Ultimately, they're fighting for the same thing. It's to build the government bigger so they can get a bigger piece of the pie. And it's not everyone. I mean, anytime you have a huge body, first of all, government's an abstraction. It's all people, right? Some of the people really do have bad intentions. Most of the people think that they're doing the right thing. And I think that's actually the scariest part, because they're doing the full gusto. So what I'm challenging is actually the system that we have in place. And I'm saying the coercive nature of our political system is not benefiting the people, and it's not helping people prosper. It's actually making our lives worse. So from that standpoint, you can imagine I'm not getting a whole lot of jumping up and down from the parties to get on board. I know that
challenging their agenda. That's what I call it. I call it the toxic agenda. There's different aspects of the toxic agenda. The government is one of them, and the systems. I love that you're breaking it down, because people need to be aware that the systems that are in place are not protecting our liberties, and they're actually taking and stripping our constitutional rights. And the minute that the masses really understand that, that's the next social revolution.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And basically, so to help, our goal is to walk over 100,000 homes. We're talking about a district with 500,000 registered voters. 500,000 registered voters. So 100,000 isn't even a fifth of that. I mean, even if we got close to that goal, it's not even a fifth of the voters. But there's a funny thing that happens when you start talking to people and you show up on their doorstep and you care about their families and what their experience is. And that's that they start to talk to their friends. And then you get more and more volunteers, and et cetera, et cetera. It grows from there. So what we need now is like basic funding to start our walk campaign, and a lot of volunteers who can show up 3 or 4 times a week and walk for an hour or two. And I know that seems like a lot, but I don't know about you. I'm doing this night and day. My kids are in danger. They're forced to go to school through our government laws already. And now through those laws, they're being forced medical treatment, which for my family, I know a lot of families are in the same boat. It doesn't work well for us. It made my son very sick. And so we've battled to get him back to as healthy as he can be at this point. But to the concept of being forced to do this with my 2 daughters who haven't endured this kind of trauma it's terrifying. I'm doing this night and day because literally to protect my family. So I know there's other people that are in that boat who feel either they feel that it's harmful for their family, or they just simply don't like oppression in this form, and they're willing to show up. I want those people, the people who care more about making this happen than they do about fighting amongst themselves or causing rumors or building their kingdoms on the backs of others. I don't want those people. If you hate me and you're like, oh, she wasn't fair or whatever, I am fair and I don't do drama. And the people who show up for me, they're in deep with me because we have gone through the trenches and they know who I am. They know my character, and they know that I don't mess around. I'm here to get the job done, and I'm here to make sure that when we go into the 2019 session, he's not there because it's an acute issue, right? Absolutely. We have a lot of chronic issues in California. This is an acute issue. Well, like you said, California sets the tone and the rest of the country follows. Every piece of legislation coming through him, that's not coming through him. It's coming from the top of this agenda, and it's going through him because he is the current pawn who can get it through. We need to get rid of him. I know another one will grow back and we'll deal with that tomorrow, but today this is what needs to happen.
Oh, girl, I have chills up and down my body because you are speaking truth and you are speaking my truth. And I know that for all of my listeners, they're going to be right on board with this because we do need that. We have to rise up against it, like you said. And And Pan, Senator Pan is a puppet. He is a puppet. That's why he is literally physically ran away from people that have tried, like physically, we got him on camera, right? Del Bigtree, he ran 2 times. He ran away because here's the thing about truth. And I've said this before, but I love this and I'll say it again, is you can only hide from truth for so long. Mm-hmm. And truth is constant. Truth never changes, right? Truth is truth. And so you can't alter truth. You can try to cover it up. You can try to bury it. You can try to do a lot of different things to it, but eventually it's a seed. It'll sprout up because it's what we are made of. Like human beings are made from truth of whatever your divine, principles are, whatever religion you are, human beings are amazing and we're grounded in truth. And there's scientific principles that create the world that we live in, that whether we believe in them or not, they're still there, like gravity. It doesn't matter. You can be blind to it, but it's still going to have its effect on you, right? The cause and effect relationship. And that's what we're seeing right now with this political structure of people that are not, being honest. They are using their positions of power to coerce and to control and to manipulate. And, just straight up, we have segregation. And here's the thing, people don't want to use these words, but I'm going to use these words right now because they're important, because we're talking about our children. There is absolute segregation, discrimination happening in this state and across the country, across the world, regarding medical freedoms, regarding educational rights. I mean, we have children that are perfectly healthy being kicked out of school, and we have children with special needs that are not getting the appropriate care because they don't fall into the category of what the government deems appropriate for them to be. Like, it's insanity. And so our human rights and our civil liberties have been disrupted and dismantled. So we do need someone like yourself to stand up, to go in the streets, to go door to door. So I'm going to work with you on this to help mobilize people in your area that can go out there. I know we have a lot of warriors in Sacramento and surrounding Bay areas they'll do whatever. I mean, I'm in Los Angeles, but I'll drive up to Sacramento and help you pass out flyers and, you know what I mean? Whatever I need to do, because whatever happens in Sacramento, guess what? It's not just a District 6 issue, right? It's going to trickle down. Look what he did. It's going to trickle down to the entire state. So if you're listening to this and you are in California, or if you are in other states, you can still help. Social media is so powerful. The agenda can't shut us up. I say that a lot on Facebook, but it can't, because we're too powerful and there's a lot of us and people are tired of being controlled. That's not who we are as a human race. We were not meant to be controlled, and we don't want to have history repeating itself. And that's what we're seeing happen right now. So we have to be the change and we have to rise up. So going door to door with Janine and speaking out on Facebook and letting people know about her mission and her campaign. So can you tell us, how can people get involved? How can they contact you? Where should they go? And when they listen to this and they are inspired and they do want to take action, how can they assist you in your mission?
Well, we have the kind of nuts and bolts, really streamlined components set up. So we have a website. It's DeRose for Senate. So DEROSE for Senate.com. And I'm on Facebook. I feel like I'm on Facebook too much, but you can find
me too, girl. Me too.
You can find my personal page. And then I also have a public page. And I also have a group. So the group is like the intake for all the volunteers. Of course, we need to see, we need to go through that and see, okay, well, what's your availability? What are your strengths? Where are you comfortable? Because I want people feeling comfortable. When we're messaging straight to people, we're talking to them on the phone or we're going to them in person. It's very specific. We're not spending like 2 or 3 hours talking about every facet of what's going on, because you can talk to people long enough that you find somewhere where you don't agree and it all shuts down, it all breaks down. So it's like you connect, does this message resonate? Okay, we move on. And those are messengers, right? That's a really important job. So we're trying to find those people to lead the teams and really bring in people that are going to be strong. So you can catch me on Facebook, DeRose for Senate, and that's got my phone number on there. It's 916-750-5512. The only problem is my phone gets blown up a lot, so if I don't answer, that's why.
You're a busy lady. You're a busy lady doing important things. I get it. People are like, I messaged you last week. I'm like, I'm getting to you. I'm gonna read it. I promise you. So yeah, no, together, what I'll do is this recording is obviously going to be on the podcast. And also we are doing a live video for those of you listening. It's also going to be on YouTube. And I will put all of Janine's links below there so that you can connect with her. You can connect into her campaign. You can support her on social media. Like I said, even if you're not in the area or you're not in California and you just want to be involved because you want to stand for freedom and liberties and personal, rights and bodily freedom rights and medical freedom and all of these things that we're talking about today, I really encourage you to get involved, because now is the time. We want to be on the right side of history, guys. You don't want to look back in 10, 15, 20 years and have to stare your kids in the face and say, wow, I didn't do what I could have done then because I was scared, or I wasn't being brave, or I wasn't using my voice. Like, we all have to make this our collective responsibility to keep our liberties and our society in place. And right now, it's not happening. So I want to encourage all of you to get involved. Thank you so much. I know you're so busy. Thank you for taking the time today to come to us so that we could get to know you a little bit better. And I think you're so brave and you're an amazing woman. And I really acknowledge everything that you stand for and everything that you're doing. So thank you for being on. So you guys, go rock your day, be healthy, be happy, be free, stand up for yourself and for others, make the world a better place. And with that, we will see you next time. God bless everybody.